Hello. Something comes to me to share. I thought we would take a word and play with it and show the blessing and the benefit of both using the word, having it defined, and not using it, as per the last journal on language structures consciousness. And the word I'm choosing is teacher. Okay? Now, we have the dictionary definition to go by. I'm sure we all know what a teacher is without having to go look it up. Um, and there are various categories of teachers. There are ways of looking at teachers. Some have a degree, some don't. Some, like me, have a degree. I have a master's in education, in early childhood special ed, but I don't use it to teach. I didn't get it for that. I got it to help me understand my daughter. But anyway, okay, so there are all kinds of concepts around teacher, and I'm frequently mistaken for a teacher. And so there are pluses and minuses with that, as with everything. But what I want to do here is not criticize anyone or say anyone is right or wrong about anything. I just want to play with this word teacher. Now, a lot of our words, see, words are all relative. Relativity, that's 3D pretty well. You'll sometimes hear people talk about relative truth. Relative, the base word, I think, is relation or relate. And I like a thing I call flexible perspective, which is the joyful ability to hop and jump and skip around all of cosmos and take different perspectives on the whole and play with doing that. It brings me great joy for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. That's just, you know, an odd foible perhaps that I have. Now, this thing about teacher. Where was I going with that thing about it all being relative? Well, words are relative, but we're not. We have our little pinky toe here in 3D called a body mind. All right? As to who and what you are, that's your little pinky toe. That is no more the sum total of you than anything. I mean, that's just bizarre. And yet we've been programmed and taught to think that we're the body, we're the mind. And so we've lived like that. And it's been a certain form of slavery, actually, which enabled us to be manipulated in oh so many ways. And we thought we were only 3D beings. And so that was how they got away with it. Up until not too long ago, when the powers that were, well, they shifted from being the powers that be to the powers that were. All right, back to the word teacher. Who and what do you think you are? How do you define self, if you do? Or how do you conceive it? Because everything in your reality is based on that. That's the foundation for quite a lot. When we shift our concept of self, we shift our whole reality and take on a new perspective. And my suggestion always is to leave the body mind behind as far as identifying with it. It's fine to have it. It's like having a hand or a foot or a pinky toe. There's nothing wrong with having it. But to think that you are that, that's another thing. Okay, so a part of this rests on who and what I am. It may seem that teaching comes out of this mouth. That's a seeming. That's the activity of the pinky toe going on there. That's all that can be seen as long as we take up our post in the mind. We just see what's on the surface. For those in heart, you have deeper vision, and you can see that what this is before you here is an instrument that's being used by something in higher dimensions to speak. What comes out the mouth comes directly from heart. It doesn't come through the mind, through the brain. I can't say I understand this way of transmission or anything. I can't define the one that it comes from. The closest I could come is a very mundane thing to just say higher self, whatever that is, you know. And the self, of course, is a capital S. So let's look at if we define what you see here as teacher and if we don't. If we define what you see here as teacher, what we have available to us is what's on the surface. And it's handy and it's useful. I mean, everything is useful in one way or another. Horse crap is useful if you've got a garden. All right, anything is useful. It's got a multiplicity of potential. Everything is like multidimensional and multi-potential, whatever. And so it's how much of it do we want to wrap our arms around, wrap our consciousness around? How deep do we want to go down the rabbit hole, as some have said? So to see this being as a teacher is actually to misperceive. Because when you're looking at this being that way, you're looking at the body-mind. And as I've just said, nothing that comes through in the journals, almost nothing that comes through in the journals is of this body-mind being. It comes from elsewhere. And so those of you in heart, believe me, or you can believe me when I say that I'm being tutored here right along with everyone else. Now, here's one of the challenges with thinking that you're a teacher. And there's a lot of folks out there making videos and claiming to be a teacher with the very, very best and brightest of intentions and so on. Again, I have nothing negative to say about anyone or anything. This is not that. Be in heart. If you think you're a teacher, then what happens is you're overemphasizing one of your multifunctions, one of your multi-dimensions, and you're identifying with it, perhaps. And if that is the case, then you have less awareness that you're also a pupil. And so life will present you a teaching, and it will send it to you through your student. Will you perceive it? Well, if you think you're a teacher, it's at least 50-50 you won't. Because you think you're invested in thinking that you know something and that you have something to share, and that's where you're coming from. You'll be looking at your student to see their relative understanding of what you have to say. Are they understanding it the way that you want them to? And so your awareness of your pupil aspect will be dim and faded. Now, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to make space for anything is possible, absolutely anything. And so I don't think we should ever take anything too seriously. I don't think we should ever vest any kind of a strong belief in anything, including what I'm saying here. So there may be and there will be those who are called from heart to think and believe that they're a teacher and to deliver that way, and that's their very calling, and that's really important. So what I say here doesn't really have applicability in what people are doing. It doesn't judge what they're doing. It doesn't say, I think they should be doing something else or doing what they're doing a different way. What this is for us internally. It's to educate our vision. It's to help us grow and expand, because it's never our business to meddle with somebody else. You know, we're all divine beings here, and that means the rabbits and the grasshoppers and all the rest of it, but especially man. There's something really special about mankind. And I always mean woman, you know, along with man. We're more conscious, perhaps. Everything is conscious, everything is sentient, and we're really not conscious when we're in mind, and we're denying sentience to the rest of life. The cells in your body are sentient beings. They are aware. They can be communicated with directly. But first, you have to see them like that, huh? And so much is perception. So much. And when we're talking perception, that also means perspective. So, is this it? I mean, maybe what I'm calling for is balance. I don't know. It just struck me that to think of the self as a teacher is to self-limit for me. And I don't do that. And I'm very sincere. I mean, if I knew all this stuff that came through the journals, wouldn't I be something special, huh? I don't. It comes through, and I learn and I study, and it's resonant with something within. I still have free will. I'm not an automaton or a robot here. And I had about 40 years of practice with the journals. I guess when I was 19, probably already then, there was a knowing that these would one day be shared in some way. And over the years, as I watched that and I was aware of that, I mean, even in the old journals, there's this thing where I break out talking to the listener, which is bizarre, because until just a couple years ago, these were all totally private and personal. So, and yet there was a knowing. Somehow there was going to be a sharing take place. And so there was a part of me that was an observer and that kept watching and looking at the journals throughout those years. And I would talk to God about it in the journal. And I would say, you know, this is BS. This is not good enough. This is not worthy of sharing anywhere. How can that be? Blah, 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 blah. You know how it is when you're trying to work something out within. And so I watched for a very long time, even giving up on the journals actually ever being worthy to share in their entirety. I watched myself go through a lot of nonsense. And of course I journaled it. I mean, you know, there's no claim to be a saint here. But anyway, where am I going with this? Oh, yeah, it finally got to where there was, I guess there was always a little bit of magic flowing through. I don't know what happened. Maybe over the years it was surrendering beliefs and whole layers and clusters and clumps and groups of beliefs. Sometimes surrendering one belief alone can be earth-shattering for the being, because you got a lot of other things that were based on that all come crashing down when you realize, oh my God, that was a little piece of BS I put in there. You know, why did I ever believe that? Well, you know, it is what it is. It's all okay. Boy, am I ever rambling. Okay, can I close it up here, this thing, with thinking that we're the teacher? By defining, what we're doing is we're defining there. We're defining the self. And anytime we define the self as anything, we take up a certain perspective, but it's at the expense of all the others. And we lose balance as we do it. We get out into this world where everyone seems to have become a specialist in this, that, or the other. And only now, maybe since 2000, do I see us more linking up and the specialists getting together and actually having a conversation on how all their work interrelates and impacts. And so we're becoming whole again. We're coming back into, I think, a more holistic way of viewing, or at least we're open to that. For a very long time, the word of the specialist was the ultimate. You know, if you were the specialist in the most minute of detail of aspect of brain surgery or whatever, you were like God to your profession because you'd studied it down to such detail and you were respected for that. Well, we got off into the details of the fractal, and that was great. That was a fine ride, you know, but we're backing out of it now, and we're beginning to see more and more and more, and even much more of the whole. And so I'm just using this, or attempting to, as an example of what happens when we slap a definition on someone or something. It's limiting. To define something is to limit it. It's like a snapshot. And perhaps, just perhaps, to forget how very multidimensional we are, and that in reality we contain the whole. I mean, what's a hologram? You cut it up in pieces, each one contains the whole. Each cell contains all of cosmos, and the mind doesn't have to understand that. It doesn't depend on the mind. It just works that way somehow, and it's bizarre, and frankly, it's beautiful. Maybe at least if you've got Sagittarius rising. See you again soon.